Okay, so now we have got done part 1A and part 1B. Now we're going to get on with the physical mating itself. So we're going to talk about, we did discuss last time about timing. We're going to just briefly touch on that again. Timing, then the various different techniques of how you're going to do the physical AI itself. All right, so just to kind of quick going back where we were, we've got a dog that we want to breed. We've decided on what style dog we're going to use. We've decided the dog is healthy and that we're in good shape and we're ready to go ahead with the actual mating itself. So most dogs are, well, not most dogs, you want to breed your dog on, and we're just going to get rid of this part here that says vaginal cytology. So let's just get rid of this. So there's a number of ways to decide when the dog is ready to be bred. The best way is to get some progesterone numbers, which requires that you draw blood to do that. And you're going to have to, there's a number of ways that you can do this. You can go get the Target, go to targetvet.com, you get the Target test. It's, I think 12 tests are $142 delivered. It's better than not doing any progesterone tests, but it's not as good as getting a real number. How do you get a real number? You go to your vet and you spend somewhere between the low end of 60 to a high end of a couple of $100 for them to do a progesterone test on your dog. Be aware of the fact that lots of these vets are also going to charge you an office visit on the first test as well. But the way that we do this, and what you can buy from My Breeder Supply, is this product right here, which is a progesterone testing machine. It's a basic little computer. And you have to draw blood again, you have to spin the blood to get plasma off it, all easy to do. You then have some cassettes that it comes with, and you basically put a little drop of serum in this little window right here, put this into the machine, press a button, 15 minutes later you get real numbers. It costs $9 a test. So once you've bought the machine, you're running $9 a test. The machine for us has been, we had it now for a couple of years, love the machine, we sell a lot of them. In fact, I think we're the largest distributor in the southern part of the United States on the machine. We sell that many of them, and we support the product. But whatever you do, progesterone test results, best way to do it. So what numbers are you breeding on? Well, we're going to talk about an IDEX machine, IDEXX, which is the most common machine that you see in labs. And on that, 5 is ovulation. That's 5, ovulation right there. That's a level of 5. 2 days later, the dog's going to be around a 15. And a 15 is what we want to do a vaginal AI on. That's the number we're looking for. A day later, we're going to do a transcervical or surgical AI, and that number there is going to be more like a 25. So those are the numbers we're looking for. 5 is ovulation. Breed 2 days later on a 15, breed a day later on a 25 if it's a surgical or a vaginal. Why do you do it a day later on those two? Because the semen doesn't have to travel all the way up the vaginal canal. It's deposited at close to or actually physically in the uterus. Okay, so let's now get rid of this and let's talk about the actual mating process itself. So while I'm rubbing this off, we'll talk about what happens if you don't have the luxury of being able to get progesterone tests. Why would you not have that? Well, one reason would be is your vets don't offer that in your area. That's true of me in Elk City, Oklahoma. None of the vets have got a progesterone machine. It's one of the reasons why I got my own progesterone machine. I can provide that service for other people, which I do. More importantly, when I'm breeding dogs, I can get it right. This is not coming off the board. Left it on for too long. Here's a tip for you. If you've got dry rays, don't leave it on there for 3 days. It may be hard to get off. Okay, so look, so you don't have a progesterone machine. What are you going to do? Well, look, if you go back 5-10 years ago, we didn't have the luxury of having progesterone machines easily available to us. And so consequently, we weren't using progesterone machines. So what we used to do is we do a thing called an LH surge test. And that is 2 days before. Luteinizing hormone, LH, is the thing that starts the whole thing rolling. So what we used to do is we do LH surge tests. We don't do that anymore because they are very short-lived, 12-hour window. You've got to do lots of tests. So I'm not going to talk much about that. But you may still find some vets that offer a LH surge test. You basically breed 4 days after an LH surge spike. But that's not what we're doing here. So, what are the other behaviors that you can expect to see in a dog? Well, day 1, first signs of blood. Day 9 is ovulation, or thereabouts. Remember, these are not exact numbers. It varies by dog. This is just an average dog. It doesn't mean it's your dog. But ovulation, typically we're starting to see a pinking up. The discharge color goes from red to dramatic change to it gets quite a bit lighter in color. You can take a napkin, stick it up on the dog's rear end, snap a picture of it every day, keep yourself a record, and just look at it. And you will see that it starts to go light. That is typically the point that the dog is ovulating. And if that's a true statement, we want to breed probably a couple of times between day 12 and 13. Day 12 and 13. So this is what you do a vaginal AI on. And I like 2 vaginal AIs, 2 days apart. And why do I like that? Because it gives you a better window to get this timing right. So what happens here? Well, typically at this point, the discharge color has become almost clear. It might be vanilla in color. So it's become a lot clearer at that point. Then you're going to see some changes of behavior in the way this female is behaving towards other males. I'm not so interested in the way that other males behave because there's so much variability on this. You know, some young dogs, you put them close to a female I haven't seen before and they're all over it, whether she's in heat or not. Older, more experienced dogs are likely to not try and do much until the dog is really at the right point. But what you're going to see in the female is this period here going on through this ovulation and post the right date to AI, the dog is going to be more receptive. The female will be more receptive. She will go into, this time right here, what we call standing heat. That's where she stands still, doesn't walk away from the male, doesn't turn around and snap at the male, doesn't sit down, but she stands. And she stands, and if she has a tail, you'll see her tail is moved off to the side. That's called flagging. Dogs like Frenchies that have very small tails, you'll still see that tail twitch off to the side. And she will eventually allow the dog to get up on her back. That's standing heat. Standing heat, flagging, those two things together combined is a dog that's probably ready to be bred. So if you don't have any other way to do things, you absolutely can get it done this way. Now, with French Bulldogs, do we let them mate naturally? Typically not, I don't. Other dogs, like German Shepherds and Labs, sure, a lot of those dogs will mate naturally. What are the reasons for one versus over the other? Well, look, if you let the dogs breed naturally, you don't have to get involved. And if you're talking about big dogs that maybe can bite you, be careful. You know, if you're breeding, chows, which I've never done, then be cautious because if that dog's not ready and you're trying to force that dog to breed and you're getting in on the process and holding a dog still, you might get bit. So just be aware of that. Okay, so we're now to the point where we think we have a dog that's ready to be bred. So we either did a progesterone test, we've got a number that we like, or we've got behavior that we think is on par of what we want. It's time to do the breeding. How do you physically do the breeding? Look, I've got videos. By the way, if you look at this machine here in progesterone, I've got videos just specifically on this machine. You can go and look that up if you're interested. I've got videos specifically on the whole AI process. I've got videos that discuss transcervical versus surgical, which one you should do. I've got videos, a number of videos on how to do the vaginal insemination yourself. So I'm not going to go into great detail here, but basically, your next step is to get the stud dog here. Either you're going to do a mating side by side, a natural mating, or an AI, or somebody's going to ship you the semen. So let's talk about shipping semen for a moment. So this is our patented product, Shipmate. This is a digitally controlled shipping flask. This is what we use for all of our shipments. I'm now at something over 5,000 consecutive shipments without a failure in semen. This thing works. What is different than this and all the other products that you can buy? All the other products that you can buy do not control the temperature. They just have basically a cold box with some ice packs in it and kind of a foam separator to try to not let the semen get too cold too fast. The problem with shipping semen is this. If you ship semen, you've got to do two things to it. You've got to remove the prostate fluid, and you've got to put in its place an extender, which is basically nutrients and buffers to let the semen survive. And the product that we sell on our site is called, it's made by Minitube, it's called Canaplus LT, long-term extender. That is good for up to 10 days in the right environment. And the right environment is semen that is really close to freezing, but is not at freezing. And that's what this product does. This product will, you basically collect from your dog, you add extender to it, you put it into a little whirl pack, which we provide. Then you've got semen like this. You put that inside the flask. You put a fresh D-cell battery on it. This thing starts flashing to show you what temperatures it's working. You screw the lid on. You stick that whole thing into another box with some ice packs on it. And this thing then maintains a temperature inside this to very slowly drop down over 4.5 hours to 5 degrees centigrade, and then it holds it there for up to 9 days, depending on the kind of installation, shipping box, number of ice packs that you've got. And the great thing about this is that typically most shipments are overnight FedEx, 1 or 2 day delivery. A customer can take that, put it in the fridge, and keep it in the fridge for a few more days if the timing's not right. This product lets you do that. There's no other product like this around, so I'm making an unabashed plug for this. This, by the way, we invented this about 7 years ago. We've been refining it over the last few years. It's at current state. It is extremely reliable, and this is what made our stud business into what it is today. If it wasn't for this, we wouldn't be in the stud business. Now we've got, I think, 24 French Bulldog studs. We do a huge amount of stud business because of this. But look, if you're shipping, this is a product you should be using. It's reusable. You use it over and over and over again. It's quite a bit more expensive than buying, a shipping box is like 40, 50 bucks. This thing is 150 bucks, but you use it over and over and over again. So it may be more expensive to start with, but the important point here is that it works, and in the long run, it will actually save you money. But more importantly, it gets dogs pregnant. Okay, so the semen's arrived, the dog's here, whatever, we're ready to do the insemination. We've collected semen, and now it's time to do the actual insemination itself. Well, you've got a number of ways of doing that. So the simplest way, of course, is you just let the dogs do it themselves. But I don't do that with Frenchies in particular. I don't want dogs to get hurt. I don't want any contact between dogs because of things like brucellosis and canine herpes virus. So we use an insemination rod. And I love these. These are really skinny, thin, flexible rods. They're extremely easy to get in through a narrowed cervix, get all the way up to basically the awls, the place where the semen needs to be deposited. So I love these rods. They're very, very good. They're long enough that you can use them on big dogs and small dogs. You need a syringe, which comes with a kit if you buy it from us, to physically put the semen in. So what you do is that you've got the semen, you suck semen up into the syringe, then you suck some air up behind it. So when you push the semen into the dog, the last bit of air pushes everything and flushes out the tube, and you get all the semen in the dog. We've got other products for people who are not quite so confident. You can use one of these catheters. The way the catheter works is a bit more expensive. It includes the same AI rod, but you basically have this catheter that you put into the dog first, and it has a balloon on the end of it that will blow up. And I will demonstrate that here. You just put some air into this. It's not a reusable product, by the way. You throw this away. And all of these AI things, you don't want to use them again. There you go. See, it blows up. So that blows up, and that now basically is anchored inside the dog, so the dog, that can't come out. It basically simulates a tie. And now what you do is you simply put your AI rod in here, and this rod's not long enough, unfortunately, to demonstrate it, but basically this would poke out through the end of it, and now none of the semen can backflush. All the semen has to go into the right place. So this is pretty useful, throwaway product. It's not too expensive, certainly easier for somebody who's not done this before. I typically do everything with this and my finger. I put my finger in there to block the dog up, but all of these techniques will work just fine. So anyway, we also sell a silicone prosthesis, which is basically, a silicone member that simulates a dog's penis. You put that in there, again, you've got a bulb and you pump it up, it swells up, it makes for a tie, and then you AI through that device. I don't have one here to show you, unfortunately, but you can go to mybreedersupply.com and you can find those. A bit more expensive money, but you use those over and over and over again. You just wash them with soap and water and let them dry when you finish with them. Okay, so at this point, we've got the dog inseminated. Keep the dog's rear end up for a good 30 minutes. We don't want the stuff, gravity, everything dropping out. We want the dog elevated like this. This is the big problem I see when you go to the vet and have the vet do this for you. They don't keep the dog elevated. They're too busy, they've got other people in the waiting room, they don't spend 30 minutes with the dog upright, with its tail up in the air. So you either do this yourself, I think you can actually do it fine yourself in the comfort of your own home where you're not being exposed to other sick animals, and I would recommend that people do that. But if you're not comfortable with that, go to the vet. All right, so let's see now. Let's talk about things that can go wrong. Things that can go wrong. So this step, the physical insemination, mating of the dog, obviously is critical towards having a successful litter. And if you don't get it right, what's the result? Well, the results can be, number one, you don't keep things clean enough. Your dog gets what's called pyometria, gets an infection in its uterus. There's open and closed pyometrias, I've got videos on that. Not a good situation. Typically those things show up a few days after insemination. The dog has a kind of a smelly discharge, kind of a creamy yellowy color. Dogs like that need to have their temperature taken. You need to find out what's going on so that you can either treat with antibiotics, or if it gets really bad and it's what's called a closed pyometria, you may have to spay the dog. Bad situation. You could even lose a dog over this. I don't want to scare you. It's not a likely thing to happen. But the important thing here is cleanliness. Glove up, don't reuse your AI rods. They're disposable, throw them away. If you're using a prosthesis, make sure it's been cleaned up and sanitized properly. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. You can mess up and get an infection. So what are the things that can go wrong? Number one is infection, because you're not using good hygiene. Number two, perforating the vaginal wall or something like that. Never seen it happen. Never seen this. Damage to a dog. I have never seen this. Damage to bitch. Never seen this happen. I guess it could happen. I mean, you'd have to just think about this. If you took an AI rod and you try to push that through a steak, you know, the kind that you eat, you try to push it through a steak, it's not happening. So I hear people talk about this. I don't think that this is even an issue. I don't think that's even. So number three is the quality of the semen is not good enough. The count is low. So the things that you look for in semen would be, it doesn't really matter about total volume. What matters is total number of active motile sperm. And we want to see 200 million or more active motile sperm. That's what we want to see. So look, how do you test for that? Well, you know, if you go to a vet, some vets, reproduction people, they've got a machine, they can do a physical count, they'll tell you. All vets are going to have a microscope, they can look under a microscope, tell you if it's any good. But you can do a visual look too. You know, it should look, with the stuff that is coming out of the male, if you're collecting it, should look cloudy in color. If it looks completely clear, you've got a problem. If it's been shipped to you and extender's been added to it, it's going to be relatively clear anyway. It won't be completely clear, but it's going to be diluted down, you know, 2 to 1, 4 to 1 with extender. So, you know, it's going to be lighter than if it was just coming out of the dog. Okay. So we want to see good, you know, if we've got suspect sperm, then, you know, this is going to impact, you know, whether we get a litter or our litter size. Number 4, getting the timing right. This is probably one of the biggest things that affects litter size, is not getting the timing right. So that's one of the reasons why I like to do 2 vaginal AIs 2 days apart. It gives you a broadest window of opportunity. Semen that you put in today is good for 24 hours. Semen you put in 2 days away is good for another hour after, another day after that. So your whole window of opportunity is stretched out to something like 4 or 5 days. So, you know, people will say, oh, you put semen in a dog and it stays inside the dog alive for a week. I don't think so. Because if it was, we just do all of our breedings early and they'd all be successful, and that's not the case. So I think that that statement that I see a lot is probably incorrect. Do I know that's correct? No, I don't. But I do know this. I have better results by doing 2 vaginal AIs. Should you do 2 vaginal AIs or 1 surgical? I like 2 vaginal AIs. I don't care for surgicals particularly because they are invasive. The dog has to go under. You know, there's a possibility of infection because you're actually opening the dog up. Not hip for surgicals. I like transcervicals better. I like 2 vaginals best of all. Then the next, number 5, is technique. Now you've got the technique wrong. And then go look at my videos, technique. You got the technique wrong. Look, if you're not getting semen into the dog and it's not staying in the dog's probably not getting pregnant. So the secret to this is just pure mechanics. Get the rod in all the way, make sure your timing's right, keep the dog's face towards the floor and its tail up in the air. Make sure stuff doesn't come out. When you finish doing that, put the dog into a cage so it can sleep for an hour or two. Before you start the whole process, walk your dog around and make sure that it's peed. Okay, let's see, what else have I got here? I think that's it. That's quite long on just that part. So that is now the actual mating. We just took care of that part there. Next one's going to be on pregnancy. Thanks for watching. Remember, we'd like it if you subscribe to us. My Breeding Supply, Love My Pups, all got some great products and stud dogs that you can look at to help you with your whole breeding process. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.